Someone asked me, am I worried when it comes to Hedera? And the reason why they asked me that is not even about the price of HBAR. It's actually about something that happened not too long ago, and that was how Grayscale allegedly withdrew its Cardano, Hedera, and Polkadot Trust ETF filings with the SEC. So naturally, of course, when people take a look at this, they're like, wow, this is so bad when it comes to Hedera. And also maybe the other projects too, like in the case of hypothetically Cardano and Polkadot. What does this mean? Now, I'll discuss more specifically the Hedera aspect in today's video, even though generally speaking, this doesn't make me concerned or worried. And let me give my rationale, even though I am not telling anyone to do anything and nothing I say is financial advice. It's just my perspective. Now, again, at first glance, seeing Grayscale withdrawing its Cardano, Hedera, and Polkadot Trust ETF filings with the SEC may seem kind of bad at first glance, but I think there's a lot more than meets the eye over here, because if we take a look at it, for instance, this is not the SEC rejecting, right? This is Grayscale voluntarily, withdrawing. But why though? Well, from what I can observe, allegedly, Grayscale withdrew the filings because they no longer plan to launch those specific, Cardano, Hedera, and Polkadot Trust ETFs under the previous registration process. And the SEC's newer kind of generic listing standards, which was approved in 2025, by the way, changed how qualifying ETFs within this space can get listed. So it kind of made the previous filings a little bit unnecessary. It's like, for instance, let me just give an example when it comes to this. If let's say in a random make-believe hypothetical scenario, a company said, hey, you know what? We want to build, let's say, this building, but then it has these specifications. We want this for the flooring, we want this for the drywall, this for all the stuff, right? Let's just say that is the case. Now, imagine if he asked 10 contractors to put their proposals out there. Now, naturally, these contractors are going to put their own proposals, right? Their pricing and all this based on the specifications that was required. But imagine if, let's say, for whatever reason, this company suddenly changed some parts of their requirements. Let's say they wanted to change some specifications and all this. It would only make sense that these 10 contractors that bid on that specific project would, in some cases, hypothetically withdraw their application and maybe refile later to actually meet the new requirements, right? That's just an example that I have in a pure hypothetical analogy. It's kind of no different here because, again, because of the changes that was seen, the previous filings kind of no longer made that much sense, because again, if there are some changes to the specifications, it would only make sense that they withdraw it and maybe, let's say, reapply. Now, are they going to for sure reapply? Who knows at this point? They might not, I don't know. But at the same time, this is not a rejection, right? Again, I just want to make that clear. And keep in mind as well, there is already an example of an HBAR ETF in the US. Take a look at, for instance, Canary's HBAR ETF, right? That's on NASDAQ. So there is an example there. There is a precedent for that. We've already seen it before. So it wouldn't be too far-fetched to assume that something like Grayscale, which is massive in its own right, I mean, take a look at the Grayscale Bitcoin Trust, has over 100,000 Bitcoin. It would only make sense that, if they maybe one day had a HBAR ETF of sorts, wouldn't surprise me. I mean, again, Canary already has a HBAR ETF, so if Grayscale had one too, maybe moving forward, it wouldn't seem too far-fetched. It's not like we've never seen an ETF ever when it comes to HBAR. That's actually not the case because, again, Canary's HBAR ETF, it launched like near kind of the end of last year. So again, there is an example of that already. Now, people like to say, well, this could also mean that Grayscale doesn't like Hedera. Well, really though? Let's take a look at this a little bit farther, right? Grayscale not too long ago posted their quarterly rebalance, right? So it's for the second quarter of 2026. And guess what? Around 2%. In the Grayscale Smart Contract Fund, it was none other than HBAR. Now people can say, well, it's around 2%. How's that good? 2% is already quite impressive. You know what I mean? So when people say that, oh, Grayscale doesn't care about Hedera, well, really though? I mean, again, if they truly didn't care about Hedera, why would HBAR make up around 2% in the Grayscale Smart Contract Fund? As a matter of fact, HBAR's percentage when it comes to that fund is actually higher than AVAX, which is Avalanche's native token, and higher than SUI, right? SUI is around 1.9%, AVAX around 1.92%, HBAR is around 2.08%. Now, of course, some other more massive projects out there make up a larger percentage, like for instance, BNB, which is around 30%, Ethereum around 29.4%, or 29.5%, I should say, almost. Solana around 29%, ADA, which is Cardano's native token, around almost 5%. So again, HBAR doesn't make up the largest percentage when it comes to that, far from it. But at least we've seen Grayscale care about Hedera to a certain extent. And think about this, right? Why even bother, filing, like, for a Hedera ETF, all this, right? Why would they even bother with that initially if they truly didn't care about it? That's just my perspective. I mean, it showcases that they hypothetically care about it to a certain extent, or not. They wouldn't really be doing that. You know what I mean? So it's only logical that because there is no rejection by the SEC and because they voluntarily withdrew, and not because they just got bored with it. No, again, it was because allegedly it was due to some changes that it would only make sense why they want to withdraw and maybe, who knows, reapply again, right, under the new criterias, basically, or under the new criteria, I should say. It would only make sense in my hypothetical opinion, but it doesn't mean they for sure will, but we'll wait and see. But nonetheless, again, I'm not worried when it comes to Hedera. Keep in mind, Hedera is just so different when compared to a bunch of other projects out there within the space. Hedera Hashgraph doesn't use traditional blockchain technology. It literally uses something called a directed acyclic graph. So it's a little bit different. Now, people like to say, well, who really cares about that? But again, sometimes being a little bit different when it comes to this space is pretty crucial, right? It sometimes is an important aspect, just because a lot of other projects out there, they're using traditional blockchain technology. It's very hard to differentiate sometimes. Hedera Hashgraph, straight off the bat, just because, again, it doesn't use traditional blockchain technology, uses a directed acyclic graph, it's just automatically different. Not to mention as well, if we take a look at it, who is a part of the Hedera Governing Council? Now, there's many, but we take a look at FedEx, we take a look at Google, we take a look at McLaren, Dell Technologies, and many others. Ever heard of those? Take a look at also Mondelez. Mondelez, one of their brands is literally Oreo, and one of their other brands is Cliff. Ever heard of that? Like, the Cliff Bar? So we gotta let that sink in. This is not a project that is like a meme or anything. No, it's not. Now, of course, there are very established memes, like in the case of Dogecoin, Shiba Inu, and all this. But I'm just saying, sometimes people think that, oh, this is just a joke. But again, we have to think about this. There's an actual hypothetical use case. So it only makes a little bit of sense as to why Grayscale cared about it to a certain extent in the first place anyways. So again, long story short, I'm not worried, I'm not concerned with what just happened. Again, I already explained why, but I'm just saying generally, I'm not worried and not concerned. So when people are saying, oh, are you so worried with Grayscale withdrawing its Cardano, Hedera, and Polkadot Trust ETF filings with the SEC? No, I'm not worried. Again, I already gave my rationale, and that's just the way I feel as of right now. However, even besides that, let's take a look at HBAR as of right now. Again, people also like to tell me, well, is it worrying that the market cap is around 3 billion currently, like almost 3 billion, right? Now, I'm also not worried when it comes to that, even though I cannot speak on anyone's behalf, by the way, but my just kind of rationale when it comes to this is that because I'm holding and because I don't mind waiting for years, if I take a look at HBAR, if it were to go back to January of 2025 levels, so basically levels we saw last year, the market cap, like at that point, was around 13 billion, right? So clearly, we're over 4 times away from that. I mean, if it goes back there, which it already showcased it could, but it doesn't mean it will. Again, we don't know, right? It already showcased that it reached that before in history, but I'm just saying, if it were to go back there, I'm going to a restaurant. Maybe Applebee's, maybe Sizzler, maybe Red Lobster or something like that. It doesn't mean it will, but I'm just saying, like, for HBAR to reach that market cap again, like what it did in January of 2025, it does not need to break another record, right? All it needs to do is match what it did in the past. And if anything, Hedera now, with a recently announced McLaren partnership, which happened not that long ago, right? We didn't see that back then when HBAR was like at that point, last year at kind of its peak in 2025. But I'm just saying, I feel like Hedera actually fundamentally improved. And also, let's keep in mind, ever since the peak of HBAR in 2025, we saw, later on in around October, or should I say like kind of near the end of 2025, we saw the Canary HBAR ETF. So a lot has happened for Hedera ever since then, and I think it actually improved. So again, it's actually better than before, in my opinion. So if it maybe went back to the market cap it was before with way better fundamentals, would it surprise me? I don't think it would, especially if, let's say, the market were to take off. But the market taking off and the market recovering, that's contingent on so many different factors that are completely out of my control. But again, usually something recovering, in some hypothetical cases, it might take time. I don't know how long it's going to take, but it might never. But also on top of that, I don't mind waiting. That's it. I've never seen a permanent bear market ever, by the way, when it comes to this space. I've seen projects come and go, but I've never seen a permanent bear market ever. So if a project can just kind of survive and make it through to a time in which the market actually does recover, we've seen Hedera do that before, right? A couple times in the past. It's been through market downturns before. This isn't the first time ever. So yeah, I'm just still holding. I'm still waiting. But nonetheless, this is just my personal perspective. I am not telling anyone to do anything. However, I'll be sure to make more videos moving forward when it comes to Hedera. So I want to say thank you so much for watching. It's been Lee the Captain, and I hope you all have a very spectacular day.